Citizens Community Forum every Wednesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise.
Join us this Wednesday on the Citizens Community Forum program when we discuss property tax in Trinidad and Tobago. Live in studio will be Member of Parliament and MP for Mayaro Rushton Paray. Our topic focus on the property tax system. You can call us at 622-1981 or 628-1981 to join the discussion. For some, there are still many unanswered questions. Well, this Wednesday, let's discuss more about this system of taxation and its impact on citizens. All on the Citizens Community Forum program, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise.
Good evening, I'm Stephen Cummings. Welcome to yet another edition of the Citizens Community Forum. Well, it's another Wednesday in Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, this is the program, the Citizens Community Forum, and of course, today being the 20th of March 2024. This evening, we'll have our telephone lines open as per usual, as this is a public platform, and you're free to call us during this hour. Our numbers are 622-1981, 628-1981, and of course, our WhatsApp message board. You can get us as well if you wish to send us a message to 675-1981. We will be happy to take your calls during this hour as we focus on the topic property tax. Well, focus on the property tax system in Trinidad and Tobago. But before we get into that, just to let you know that our objective is always to have an engaging, interactive, and civil discourse, and in so doing, have developed a culture of peace and understanding. And of course, with citizens' engagement, discussions at times may be emotionally charged, but surely we can always find common ground, if only to learn from each other. And we always tell you that please let grace prevail. The opinions are shared, however, are strictly those of the individuals, speakers, and/or guests, and we encourage you to critically evaluate the discussion as you form your own perspectives. And overall, we are a better people with diverse voices, views, opinions, and respectful dialogue. Before we get into the program this evening, just a quick look at the weather. What has the weather been like today? Well, the Met Office is telling us for the period tonight and tomorrow, Trinidad and Tobago and the remainder of the Lesser Antilles, tonight mostly fair, apart from the odd brief shower. And tomorrow, generally sunny, slightly hazy at times, breezy conditions despite a few brief isolated showers. And the night will be mostly fair. And of course, we are also noting that there is a mild to moderate concentration of the Sahara dust in the air. So persons are so advised to take the necessary precautions. Well, tonight we are talking property tax, and I have a special guest in studio. Well, he's no stranger to Trinidad and Tobago, but maybe the first time here. I think he's the first time here at our studios. I want to say a special welcome. MP Paray, good evening to you. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to enter the homes of your listeners, both locally, regionally, internationally. I know you have a very wide audience on the World Wide Web. So thank you very much for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Right, and we are happy to have you as well. It's interesting. We are living in a time when there's so much happening. Not just we talk about issues that are outside of our borders, with the war in Iran, well, in the Middle East and what have you. But I think, in Trinidad and Tobago, we also have our little domestic issues that we treat with every now and again. Not as, we're talking property tax, but of course, we do have a similar, taxation system in other parts of the world. But this evening, MP, I wanted to, before we really get into the meat of the thing, I wanted to just, have you give us a perspective on this issue. It has shaped the national conversation over the past weeks, months. Of course, you are in Parliament and you have a sort of close-up as to what's been happening. Give us your understanding of this property tax system in Trinidad and Tobago. There are a lot of people who I know are yet to get an understanding of where, yes, we know about the land and building taxes and you can go way back, but give us a perspective as to, what are we talking about in this dispensation? Okay, so basically, you'd be aware that prior to 2009, we had the land and building tax, where it came out of a pretty old system. I mean, some rates and so on were 30, 40, 50 years old. So in 2009, under the Patrick Manning administration, they would have brought this amendment to remove the land and building tax and create a standalone property tax. So there was no differentiation between land and building, whether it's land building. I mean, if a river runs through it and there's something in the river, all that falls as your property. So they came up with this property tax, and they put a particular formula in place to calculate the taxes. 2009 to 2010, there was a campaign by the then Congress of the People, which later partnered with the United National Congress and some other parties to form the People's Partnership. And there was the Axe the Tax program. Yes, I remember that.
And it became law. And I want your listeners to remember this, that this property tax became law in 2009. There was a change of administration in 2010, and part of the campaign running up to 2010 was the Axe the Tax. And basically they put that property tax legislation on hold while the then government attempted to repeal that legislation. Now, I want to make a point here specifically. In the Parliament this week, the political leader, the opposition leader, made a clear call for a repealing of the legislation. And the rebuttal by the government was, look, you all were in government from 2010 to 2015. Why didn't you repeal it? Now, I can tell you, I've been in the Parliament for 8 years as a member of the United National Congress, the opposition, and we've raised this matter on several occasions, making the same query. And I understood that when the administration changed in 2010, there was several attempts by the Minister of Finance at that time, under instructions from the leader of the opposition, the political leader of the UNC, to have it repealed.
Okay.
Have it repealed, we will bring back the old land and building taxes until we re-engineer a more fairer formula on how this would be done. And that was the intention. It is my understanding, and I think Dr. Munilal made the case just this week or yesterday, that every door that they knocked on put the then government in a position, look, you can't change it. You can't do this and you can't do that. And there were stumbling blocks at every corner. So because of what was presented to them by the relevant people in the LRC and the Ministry of Finance and so on, the next best step was, okay, let's look at re-engineering how the property tax would be framed. How would you get a very fair and equitable way of charging and so on. So at that point in time, Larry Hawaii, who was the Minister of Finance, would have come to Parliament and said, look, we are going to see if we can re-engineer this property tax and we're going to move forward with it. Unfortunately, based on what was happening in the country, like it or not, it fell off. It fell off the grid, fell off the the legislative table, and there were so many other matters that were taking the attention.
Yes, yes.
So that remained dormant. Government changed in 2015. There was a manifesto promise by the People's National Movement that they will not look at the property tax, there'll be no property tax, there'll be nothing. And then 1 or 2 years after, the language and the conversation changed,
Yes.
the conversation around the property tax came back,
Yes.
and it came before us in the parliament. So what do? We made it clear that the property tax, in how it was presented by the Minister of Finance, we were not in agreement with it because we felt the use of the annual rentable value was a very poor framework of calculating the tax, and we could probably get into that a little later.
Yes. Yeah.
But so we made a principal position as an opposition that, you see, that formula is not going to work. We think it's unfair. It has equity issues. There was no clear position on how the valuations would happen.
Right.
And I'll tell you a bit about what was revealed in the parliament this week. And so there was clear objection from our part. Then, as a side swipe, it was connected to the local government reform,
Right.
because the understanding was that property tax would have formed part of the revenue stream for your municipal corporations.
Right.
So the song and dance by the government was that, look, we are going to create this new local government reform system where you would pay your taxes to the municipality. The municipality will now have that revenue to drive development
At the local level.
at your local level.
Yes.
Again, we identified a number of flaws in that. And the key flaws were, one, there was no increase in any revenue for the regional corporations because the way how the legislation was
Frame.
formatted,
Yes.
they said, okay, so for instance, if Mayaro had an allocation of $8 million for property tax, if the corporation received only 2, the state will provide the other 8. So there is no way you're going to get an increase in
yes,
revenue.
There's no increase.
Now, we did some calculation. I did some calculations for Mayaro. And under no condition, if we were to swap out every single bit of state intervention or state funding to the corporation and just take it from property tax using some wild estimates, there was no way we're going to even get the revenue that is required for our developmental plan.
But this brings into question to MP. If that has been a recognition, why this urgency in terms of, I understand, the local government, initiative and there's need to collect revenue, but you were saying that there wasn't really anything that would, be coming forth, anything significant from that.
That is how we saw it. The state peddled a different position that the municipal corporation will now have additional revenue. We couldn't see it when we did the numbers. Remember, the United National Congress is in charge of 7 municipalities.
Yes.
So we looked at the numbers, we looked at the estimates, and we grounded on the fact that was untruthful. Right? We'll use parliamentary language. Right? It was untruthful.
Yes.
But let's assume for 1 minute that there was this surplus in revenue. There were other issues in terms of the local government reform that was outstanding. So, for instance, one, in order to manage that revenue stream at the local level, you need the human resources to do it.
Yes.
You need the accounting resources. You need the manpower. That was not catered for. So, municipal corporations may not have had the human resource requirement to lift their capacity
Right.
at an accounting, receiving, and dispensing level in line with the legislation under the Ministry of Finance. And that was a question we raised. What is the HR component in terms of being able to even access and spend that money at the end of the day?
Right.
What about the local government practitioners themselves? When you look at what the new council was going to be, who had access to more spending,
Right. That's under the
local government that's going to take this property tax and be able to spend it. You have councillors who may now sit as mini cabinet ministers, with large sums of money,
Yes.
what is the competency level of the councillors that you have now? Because right now, like parliamentarians and at the local government level, the only criteria you really need to take either job is you have to be over the age of 18 and alive and breathing air. You know,
and the national of Trinidad and Tobago.
Exactly. So we said, well, look, there would be some requirement to upskill councillors to understand a bit of accounting, reading financial reports and so on. So the bottom line is that we felt in the opposition that we could not give support to either. Based on that, there was nothing in place. You were putting nothing in place to deal with this level of funding. And then we had the issues with the property tax itself and the unfairness and the inequity that it would have brought to citizens. And that is why we had objections then, and we still have objections up to today.
Okay, MP, just hold one moment. Let's see if we have someone on the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. Welcome to the program. Hello? Hello? Caller, are you there? Hello? All right, that person, there was a bug on the line somewhere. Hopefully that person will get us back. Let's try again. The lines are lighting up again. Good evening to you. Welcome. Hello? Hello? All right, that person's probably on a poor line somewhere. Right, so you were making the point, MP, about, the system as it was. You see, and I've heard the opposition time and time saying that, listen, you're not going to give support to bad law.
That's correct.
Right? So that would have borne out, But, okay, let's see again. Let's try again one more time. Hopefully this caller will be able to get through. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome to the program. Hello? Hello? Caller, are you there? I'm not sure what's happening with our lines this evening. Please try and call us back. Our numbers are 622-1981, 628-1981. We'll be happy to take your call. We have live in the studio MP Paray, Rushton Paray, Member of Parliament for Mayaro, and we are discussing the property tax system in Trinidad and Tobago. MP, as I look at the Parliament, sometimes you get the sense that people, what we'd call the ordinary man in the street, they would say, well, why such a simple thing in some people's mind is causing so much, confusion. When I say confusion, in terms of persons still not understanding what this system is all about. Even though we've had a history, coming off of the colonial time that, listen, we've been paying taxes, but there's still a view out there that a lot of people are still confused, especially when we talk about this issue of valuation. And my understanding is that there are three tiers where you have, we're talking about residential, we're talking about commercial, and of course we are talking about
industrial
as well.
Yeah.
So there are three tiers. Yeah. Take us through and so that we get a better understanding of when we talk about valuation and how that is really assessed.
Yeah. Okay. So the tiers you have, it's residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural. So you are required to pay a particular rate of taxes for those three categories. So right now, under the legislation as it is, only residential properties are being asked to be presented before the roll, or what you call the statutory roll, for tax purposes. The state is not looking at commercial, industrial, or agricultural at this time.
Right, and I don't think that has been spelled out clearly from what I heard from the finance minister. Maybe I may have missed it somewhere. Some people are of the view that, listen, they have to pay taxes on their property. They may have a business that operates in a commercial. They have to pay that as well, and maybe something else. So that there is that kind of confusion. That
so you do have more so in rural communities like Mayaro, where you have people who live upstairs and they have a business downstairs.
All right, hold just a moment. Let's see if you can get this call on the other line. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome. Hello. Hello, caller. Are you there? Hello. All right, we seem to be having a little issue with our telephone lines, but of course, try to get us back here. We're here up until 9 o'clock this evening. Our numbers are 622-1981, 628-1981. We'll be happy to take your call. MP, you were making a point.
Yeah, in terms of the residential, so it's only residential at this time. You have some people who live upstairs, they have their commercial properties downstairs. So there's a bit of lacuna there in am I paying taxes for my residential part? Am I paying taxes for the commercial part? And the valuation would vary in terms of how they see the property on a whole.
Yes.
That hasn't been cleared. Some people who has the commercial business operating, they treat the entire property as commercial, so they have not filed.
They have not filed.
Because the requirement was for residential only.
Okay.
So, but I do know there are some people who would have both. I'm not sure who would have filed as pure residential, who would have filed as commercial. Now remember, it's only a small amount, as far as I understand, of actual valuations that were done by physical visits.
Right.
Because it was taking a lot of time. And last year, the minister...
Okay, let's hold just a moment, MP. I think we have a call on the line. Let's take a pen, hold that thought. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome. Hello. Yes, caller, go ahead. Hello. Good evening, caller. All right, we try back again. Yes, MP.
Yeah. So, in terms of the valuation, so the minister felt last year that he needed to turn this lever for the assessments to go to the Board of Inland Revenue. So the law...
Which has still not been properly... I think I know where you're headed, but I would allow you to develop that point. Yes, go ahead.
So the law requires that 50% of all residential properties, which is probably in the vicinity of about 225,000 homes.
MP, I'm so sorry to have to cut you,
Sure.
but let me just see if we can get another caller in. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome.
Afternoon.
Oh, yes. Good evening
I
to you.
would like to know why you hold a Trinidad and Tobago don't want to pay tax, and you all over the world people pay tax. Tax is what has built a country. So I can see people in them who they don't want to pay tax here, but plenty of them are all kind of houses all about, and they pay tax. But it's only Trinidad now, they want to live free. They just want to try the country, because if all them pay tax, what they think is going to happen to Trinidad and Tobago? God bless.
All right. Thank you, caller. I think the issue is not really that people don't want to pay taxes. We're talking about the system, which has not been properly, and there are issues, and we have to fix that. But you were making a point before the caller.
Yeah. I really want to just respond to one thing the caller said, in that the position of a lot of people in this country is not that they don't want to pay the property tax, but if I pay taxes, am I going to get the level of service that I expect?
Right.
And there's a confidence issue there.
And is it going to go to the consolidated fund and not...
Exactly, because in the consolidated fund, the Minister of Finance have access to do with whatever he wants. Now, there were some amendments last year which gave some assurance that the money would not go into the consolidated funds. It would go into the accounts of the municipal corporation.
But that MP might just be a political statement.
Well, it's left to be seen, right, how it will eventually work, because the Minister of Finance still has to execute a warrant to move the money from point to point.
Yes.
So, that being said, I think the answer to the caller is that it is not that Trinidadians don't want to pay tax. Remember, we are already burdened with a number of taxes, and we're saying, listen, if we have to pay this one, are we going to get the level of service in the municipality? Water, power, potholes, garbage collections. They are not convinced that in the U.S., when you pay your property taxes, or what you call your municipal taxes, they get a certain level of service. So I don't think it's not that Trinidadians don't want to pay it. It is that they don't like the method, the methodology of how the taxes are calculated, and we don't believe that we're going to get the level of service from as it's stated by the state. And I think that's where the pushback is.
All right.
Right?
This is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. We are talking property tax, the property tax system in Trinidad and Tobago. I have with me live in studio Member of Parliament for Bayaro, Rushton, Paray, and of course, he is here assisting us, getting to get a better understanding of this system of taxation. We know that there's been a lot of reactions from various quarters of Trinidad and Tobago, including the opposition, which has some serious concerns about the method, as you just heard the MP, which, there is an attempt to kind of have this system implemented in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, we have always been at a stage where, we continue to be concerned about even the economics of the country. And I think this probably comes at a time where some people are saying that, listen, we just came out of COVID, a long period, what was it, almost 3 years. Yeah. And the economy is still showing signs of depression in many sectors. And the argument from some members of the population is that, listen, why bring this level of taxation now? They're not saying that we are not we are not appreciative of the tax, but maybe the timing is wrong, MP.
There will never be a right time for taxes. There will never be a right time to pay taxes. So taxes is something that no citizen wants to pay. The caller is right, the last caller, that you need taxes to run your government, to do things. But there must be some equity and fairness. And I want to explain where the challenge is in the property tax for residential owners.
Yes.
A commercial property owner can expense every item of expense in managing that property, maintenance, insurance, payments, electricity, water, and whatever is the property tax.
Right.
They can charge that against profits to reduce their taxes to the state.
Right.
So to the business, it is not a cost to carry because they're charging it against their profits for the year.
Right. So there's a benefit to...
There's a benefit.
There's a benefit, yeah.
Now, the state does receive taxes, but at a reduced amount. Now, what about me and you? We have a house, we have a home that some of us built it, some of us would have inherited from parents. The annual rentable value is a method which by the state says, well, look, the valuator, feel that your house, based on the condition, how it look, how much toilet, how much bathroom, how much kitchen space, whether you have tiles, ceramic on your floor, I feel you could get $100,000 a year rental for your house.
Right, so
and we will charge you 3% of that. Now it's 2%. We reduced it to 2%. 2%, yes. We will charge you 2% of 11 months rent. 2% of 11 months rent. So we knock off 1 month for you. Now, this is what's happening. A residential owner cannot expense out maintenance of the building, painting, whatever electrical charges to the house, insurance. People have bridging finance for 10, 12 years.
Yes.
So I have a cost to own my home. You are telling me that there's an imaginary stream of money that I'm getting, but I'm going to have to pay on this imaginary stream.
The 2%.
But I can't write off that cost to maintain my property. Now, to me, that is a serious disadvantage to a residential owner, to a citizen who is already under the mercy of a lot of issues, inflation, a bit of joblessness in some communities, a suppressed economic activity. The fear of crime is another issue. People may have to spend money on burglar-proofing their homes, cameras. So, you see, I think that is a bit of the unfairness, the inequity in that model. So people will ask, okay, well, MP, if not that annual rentable value, what is the other formula? In other jurisdictions, they've used many different formulas. One, if you look how England has done it, so they zone areas. So we have 14 municipalities. Yes, in Trinidad, and according to the Act, we no longer use the word regional corporations. We have municipalities. That's correct.
Fancy too. Okay.
So we have these. In England, they put 6 levels, 6 stratas based on the value of your property, and there is a fixed cost in terms of the tax for each strata. But in various locations, there will be a different sliding scale.
Right.
So Mayaro will have the 6 strata, but it will be probably at a lower end than a West Moorings or an urban center, right? So that's what they did in England, and there is some equity there. So what happens if I live in an area in Mayaro called Grand Lagoon? My neighbor has a house that is probably quarter the size of mine. While we live in the same area, their taxes would be lower than mine because of the value of their home at the end of the day. And in the mind of the homeowner, that may be more equitable because my value is higher, so I will pay a little more. So that's one method. In Hyderabad, there is something called the Hyderabad model, where they look at property tax as a consumption tax.
Okay.
So what they do, they took an average of your electricity consumption, because if you're living in a house with 5 air conditioned, swimming pool,
Of course,
a lot of nice things, your power bill automatically becomes higher.
Yes.
If you are living in a modest home, lights, probably 1 AC, 1 fridge.
Yes.
So they found a method of looking at their power bills as a consumption type of arrangement to see, what tax you would pay. I mean, there are various other models. Some countries tax you on your capital, the capital value of your property as well, which is the full cost of it.
Full cost, yeah.
The full cost, like what happens in some states in the US.
And I've heard the minister talk about making reference to this issue of market value as opposed to
The rentable value.
rentable
Yes.
value.
So the rentable value is, at the end of the day, if you were to have to pay a 1% on $1 million property, that is going to be a lot higher than if I'm paying
Obviously.
2% on the rental value of that. So there is some give and take at the end of the day. But let's look at the Caribbean. We, at 2%, we're still a lot higher than a lot of Caribbean countries. When you look at the average in the Caribbean, for some areas, you look at between 0.5% and 0.75%.
Right.
So there are those who feel that even when we are 3%, it was very, very high.
Very high.
I also want to make the point that I don't believe it is out of pure love that the state reduced the tax from 3 to 2%. And I'll tell you why.
Hold that question for a response for a moment. We have to take a break, and when we come back, I want you to develop that point, because as a matter of fact, that was one of the questions that I was going to ask you as to what you believe engendered that that move and that reaction from government. But we talk about that when we come back. We take a short break.
Citizens Community Forum every Wednesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise.
Join us this Wednesday on the Citizens Community Forum program, where we discuss property tax in Trinidad and Tobago. Live in studio will be Member of Parliament and MP for Mayaro, Rushton, Paray. Our topic focus on the property tax system. You can call us at 622-1981 or 628-1981 to join the discussion. For some, there are still many unanswered questions. Well, this Wednesday, let's discuss more about this system of taxation and its impact on citizens, all on the Citizens Community Forum program, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise.
With changing economic times, the financial support of the Christian community is becoming more relevant.
Finances are vital to enable Isaac to continue fulfilling its mandate locally, regionally, and internationally.
The Isaac Fund is to allow local, regional, and international supporters to provide financial support to Isaac 98.1 FM and assist FBN in fulfilling its vision and mission globally. When you support the Isaac Fund, you will receive discounts on all FBN products such as FBN Studios, Promise Store, events, Isaac's corporate advertising packages, plus a quarterly newsletter update on FBN's activities.
You receive an annual thank you token and automatically join our radio birthday and anniversary club. Call and find out about our packages and assist FBN in fulfilling its vision and mission.
I support the Isaac Fund.
I support the Isaac Fund.
Call Helena at 357-40
4075, Wendy or Kieran at 622-8981, Monday to Friday, between the hours of 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Be a part.
Welcome back to the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. This evening we are talking property tax, the property tax system in Trinidad and Tobago. I have with me live in studio a Member of Parliament for Mayaro, Rushton, Paray, and he is here helping us get a deeper understanding of what we have been, many of us have been concerned about in terms of understanding this property tax system. And of course, you are free to give us a call here if you feel the need to connect with us. You may have a question, you may have a concern. You can get us here right now between going up until 9 o'clock this evening. Our numbers are 622-1981, 628-1981, and of course our WhatsApp message board is also available at 275-1981. We'll be happy to connect with you. MP, you were making a point just before we went to the break. What was really, in your view, behind this, some people call it a sudden change, 360 degree? Now, I heard your colleague, MP Amin, saying that it was pressure from the opposition that caused government to have a second look at this implementation of the system.
I don't doubt that it was the pressure from the government. I mean, we've had a position on this matter for the entire period. It was pressure from the public as well. And the minister, when he announced the reduction, he sold it to the public as, look, we care about you and we feel that,
Yes, he said it was designed to help people.
But I'll tell you what the problem was. There has been a barrage of complaints with valuations. Many valuations have been poorly done, and I'll give you an example. A relative of mine who live in Paray, in Tunapuna, he lives in a small flat house. It's about 1,100 square feet, flats. And he got an assessment for $333,000. $333,000. Now I can understand that, okay, you live in a more upscale area in Paray compared to where I live in Mayaro, but I can't see the difference being so hard. So his tax for the year was calculated at around $10,000 for the year, which is very, very high. So there has been hundreds of complaints for problems, people living next to one another, same type of house, but the assessments are
different.
Big difference.
Yeah. Okay, hold just a moment, MP. We'll see if we can get this caller in. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome to the program.
Afternoon.
Yes,
I
caller.
wonder if all who say the small woman, they pay so much money if they're trying to fool public. If they know they're living wrong, go in the office and find out. Too much old talking and people getting scared, and all who have a set of business places and big houses where they apartment they renting, they're watching and that, but they're talking about they want to pay tax. All they pay tax, all they have places all over the world, and all they're paying it.
All right, caller. Thank you so much again for connecting with us. Yes, MP.
Yeah. So you have these wide variations in the assessment. So what the minister tried to do, which I don't agree with, is lay the reduction by 1%, which is, in his view, it's a 33% reduction in the tax, in lieu of bad valuations. No. In lieu of bad valuation. So what he's saying to you is, look, your valuation is bad. Look, we go knock off a third of the tax because the valuation is bad. That doesn't solve the problem. It means that there is a fundamental problem with how the valuations were done. Let's correct that.
All right, let's hold just a moment again. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome. Oh, we lost that caller. Feel free to call us back. Our numbers here is 622-1981, 628-1981. Let's go back to the telephone lines. Good evening to you, caller. Welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening to you.
I myself, thank you to you and the
MP Paray is here, Rushton Paray.
Well, we're now going through a process of, where we're contesting our value and so on. And, well, of course, with the whole maybe that's on hold also. I don't know. But my question is really along the lines of, one of the things I think is a little, yes, I understand the need for tax, right? Of course, I also look at the idea of energy security on the whole for our nation and a vast number of things, because property tax for me is something that is placed where it can increase, I guess, the same way it's lowered on a whim, it can probably be increased on a whim. But one of the things is that we live in a property, for example, where my grandfather, great-grandfather, we've inherited a property, and it's in an area where we cannot afford to live. We can't afford to purchase a property in that area, but we can't. But because of the development that has gone on around us, we're in this area, and so there are. Yes, there's the rental value, but what happens when you really look at the area and you say this is is it that we are supposed to move out of the area? Of course, I'm saying that from the point of I remember originally when we wanted to get a mortgage because the mortgage rates were higher because of where we were and all kind of different thing, and it was based on the area, not necessarily the fact that people looked at this and said, hey, you have something of value, so we have to charge you more, as opposed to inherited land and being established as, that kind of thing. So I find that side of it is a little unfair.
Right, but do you have a specific question that you...
Right, so my question is really along the lines of, do you see as this tax was lowered in such a manner as it was, how easy would it be to have it escalate or raise to whatever value? Are there any checks and balances in place? Seeing as how they could just drop it, what is the risk of it just going as high as, without any true valuation? We obviously seen that.
We will allow the MP to respond to you, and of course, you can listen off air. Thank you, caller. MP.
Okay, very important question, and I will tell you that was a bone of contention in the amendments this week. So one of the 3 clauses in the amendment, the government asked to give the Minister of Finance the power to adjust the rate schedule by negative order. So what that means? Prior to last Monday, if the minister wanted to make any adjustment to the rate schedule, he had to bring an amendment to Parliament, what you call a positive resolution, and we had to debate it. And based on the debate, it's simple majority. The minister will get his way, but the public will be aware of what the issues were. However, because of the amendment, the minister now has the power to change the rate at his own will and fancy by negative order, which means he does it, he publishes an order, and we have 40 days to pick up on it and file an objection, and then it comes to Parliament. Now, what it means really is that you are not allowing the stakeholders, which we represent, which is the citizens of the country, to bring their issues as to why the rate should be higher or lower, or there should be no rate at all. So that is a bone of contention. So to answer the caller's question, right now, the minister has the power to raise or lower the rates as he sees fit, without it having to come for parliamentary scrutiny first. And we've always objected, not only on this bill, my personal view is that ministers of government must not have that kind of power. More so when you're dealing with money, finance, taxes, where you are interfering with the livelihoods of people. And Stephen, my challenge is sometimes I feel that the government doesn't understand the plight of rural communities, like Mayaro, Rio Claro, where there is a huge population of people who really try to eke out a living day to day. And $5 or $10 mightn't rock you, but it will rock some of the people in Mayaro. So that is the challenge you find. And when a minister of government can come and adjust these rates so without having the parliamentary scrutiny that it should really have, I think that's a problem that the country can have an issue with going forward.
All right, we have another call on the line. Caller, good evening to you and welcome to the program. Hello? Hello? Caller, are you there? Hello? All right, the caller will try to get us back. Yes, MP.
Yeah. So we were making the point about the issues of the valuations.
Yes, we let's go back. The telephone lines are lighting up. Good evening to you. Welcome to the program.
Absolutely. I get to understand the reason why some people break in the tax because they have people land with no any belong to the owner.
Okay, caller, thank you so much again. You seem to have a magic finger to get through to the lines, but we thank you all the same for calling.
The caller made an important point, as unique as she phrased it. One of the positive about having a property role, and I'm not using the word property tax, but having a property role, it is to manage the fraud and illegal activity that happens with transfers of property. So she has a good point.
All right, let's see who's on the line again. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome. Hello? Caller, good evening to you. Welcome. Hello?
Good night, gentlemen.
Yes, good evening to you.
So I would like to know, is this payment of the property tax, is it commencing from 2024, or do we also have to pay any retroactive?
All right, well, we have MP Paray here. Is there another question?
That's it. I'll listen offline. Thank you.
Okay, so there is no retroactive tax. So you're going to be...
That was another
yes.
Confusion
right.
in the mind.
So what the government did every time is that they put in clauses where those retroactive taxes were waived. So you are only now going to be paying for your current fiscal year, which is 2024,
right,
where the payment is due on or before September 30th, 2024. So you would have gotten your assessment slip. Not everybody got it, so that's why the third amendment this week, we extended the period, and when I say we, the Parliament, extended the period for assessment notices from March 30th to the end of June 30th. So you got an additional 3 months for the Board of Inland Revenue to get its paperwork outside there. For people who would have paid the taxes at the 3%, the Board of Inland Revenue, as the Minister claimed, will issue you a refund of that 1%, that third of the tax that you would have paid in terms of dealing with the people who've paid on the existing assessments.
Right. And I've heard, many people saying as well that it is a convoluted piece of legislation as it is, because you have this issue of inequity, and you reference that one person who lives in a what we may describe as an upscale area may not have a property that may be considered to be valued at the same level, and then of course you have this in terms of even population size as well. I think that is also one of the considerations as well, because if you have to have a valuation done, it has to be in line with property that are owned by persons within the Pacific area. But there's another question too, MP, as we look at this whole issue, and I want to sort of before we end the program, when we look also at the state of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, as I said before, many of us are still, when I say us, I mean the business community, still reeling, from almost 3 years of decimated, areas. Some businesses have even, were not even able to rebound in that sense. So that, when we look at this, one wonders, how effective, and do you really believe that there is going to be equity really in this, attempt to implement property tax in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, whether there will be equity, I don't know if there is equity in anything in this life. At the end of the day, there is clear stratas. What I can tell you is that, over the last few years, the working class have been decimated in this country. We have put pressure, and I keep saying we because the state, in terms of the policies of the state, have really been very imbalanced. So you have the state trying to balance off revenue by generating taxes and so on, a lot of different taxes, rate increases and so on. But we've seen very little or no improvements in our fostering of trade, new investments, new foreign direct investments. that generates new businesses, new jobs, bring people off the breadline, get communities going. We haven't seen that in any big way. We keep, beating this one pony show called the energy sector, the oil and gas sector.
Yes.
And I mean, we're still going to be an oil and gas economy for another 20, 30 years.
Time, yes.
But we have to be able to push the diversification at the same time. So when you have your working class, which really ought to be, the driver of your economy, going from the working class to the working poor, because you have two persons living in a house and they can't save any money.
Yes.
By the time they pay mortgage, school fees, things for their cars, there is nothing to save.
Yes.
So in a society, savings is equal to wealth in macroeconomics.
Yes.
And if we can't generate wealth, we have a
Continue to be
problem.
in the class of the working poor.
But here,
Right.
just very quickly, the Prime Minister made a comment the other night when he said that he was seeing a lot of cash in the commercial banking system. And he was saying that cash with the multiplier effect could really drive the economy.
Yeah.
Now, he's not wrong. Where I think that he missed the point is, why is private sector keeping their cash in the commercial banks at 0.25%, 0.5%, 1%, and not wanting to take it out and invest because they have lost confidence.
I was just
that is it.
Yeah. So that there is a lack of confidence.
That's correct.
In the economy. But having said that, I know we're talking about property tax, and you've given us quite a bit there. But I also want to engage you just for a moment before we close on the state of the economy as we go back to that issue. Now, I read there's a report that there was of course you would know, there was a representative group from the International Monetary Fund. They were here and they recently reported that for the first time in a decade, Trinidad and Tobago seems to be undergoing what they describe as a gradual and sustained economic recovery. But we are still lagging. It says that the IMF mission led by Camilo Tova was in Port of Spain between February 28th and March 8th, during which they held consultations with stakeholders, including government departments, private sector organizations, and state institutions. In that release, because a release was issued after, it contained information that said that the main conclusion and recommendation, the IMF said that Trinidad and Tobago's economic growth is projected to gain momentum in 2024 after it estimated to have been further expanded by 2.1% in 2023. But with all that's been happening, MP, I'm not sure, this can be seen as much of much good news, because you talked about the energy sector being seems to be the one that everybody's talking about to take us out of where we are. And of course, we can talk about the dragon. There's hope. There's great hope that, listen, once we can get our things correct, the dragon, and we know what has happened. But you'd want to respond to that.
So first of all, the IMF report did talk about some improvements in numbers, did see some rolling in a positive direction. But understand this. It was based on the fact that our economy during COVID went to sleep. And obviously when the barriers were lifted and industry kick-started, the only way to go is up.
Yes.
So this 2.1% and so on that is being seen in the IMF report, it is positive growth. This is something that we all wanted to hear. But we're still not at the 2019 pre-pandemic levels in terms of our growth forecast. We're still 6% behind where we were in 2015. So there was a whole 19% reduction over the last 8 to 9 years. But what was interesting in the IMF report, which the government doesn't harp on, is what the report says. Listen, guys, you can't keep going on with this energy sector.
Yes.
You need to have a vast program in your diversification. What are you doing in regards to climate change? Climate change is a security issue. It is a food issue. It is a freshwater issue.
Right.
All of these, each one of those topics can take an hour program by itself.
All right, let's just
Sure.
see who's on the telephone line. Good evening to you, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you.
Good evening, sir. Peace, love, and justice to you, sir.
Yes.
Just a quick comment, if you will allow me, on the property taxes. I'm going to do a little Socratic irony. And I ask the question here, why, if you consider how there are so many amendments almost every Monday morning to a bit of legislation to bring in about property tax when it hasn't even started to operate as yet. But every morning there's an amendment and it changes. And now, as the MP has queried, you find they want to put a clause that prevents it even having to come to Parliament as such, or to change the law, and the minister can do it. And the reason, to my mind, if there's ever any change in laws as such, it's because you have very, very bad law. The American Constitution, for instance, there's only a few clauses. And I'm saying every day, because what it gives the government, there's no constitutional arrangement for property tax or for local government. And therefore, it only has to go to Parliament to change. And they could change it as they want to. If they feel to change it to 1%, if they want to change this. For anything they want to change. That is something that we got to ask. And the reason for that, as I say, is because it is very bad law. And coupled with this, there's so much ignorance, and taxpayers are also ignorant. I don't mean in any bad way, but on the part of the government people, there's a lot of ignorance and arrogance with it. So I raise this point, and I'm sure that's where we start. But just make me two little points. Property tax, or taxes on landed property, is a very, very, very big thing. It's always made like it's just to change the tax, or just to do this, or just to do that. It is a big thing. Every single property that is taxed is could be subject to litigation.
All right.
So,
Caller, we understand what you're saying. Because time is going by so quickly. Is there is there a question also that you want specifically answered, MPs?
No, but I have no question really, because there's too much to think in terms of questions. I just raised the point so people can think about it, and I said it's a question of Socratic irony.
Right,
you can think about it and ask yourself.
Thank you so much for connecting with us. Confusion in the mind, as you know, a lot of people, MP, still into that state of understanding where we are in terms of the property tax system.
Yeah, and the caller is right, and what it stems from is bad legislation, and it is not new. We've been having that time after time after time, and this is why we stand up in the Parliament and say, look, we will support the government when you bring good law. Right? You bring good law. Because what happens when you put poor legislation, I think I called it before, it opens the state to litigation.
Yes.
And when you lose in the court, the taxpayer has to pay. So what we try to do in the Parliament as part of our duty as the opposition is make sure the government makes the best law.
Right. And it's not opposing for opposing sake.
Absolutely not.
All right.
It's not.
I just wanted you to say that again. We've heard that so many times.
Gotcha.
But we continue also to run a deficit budget, MP, and I can't remember what time. I'm looking back. Was it in the 80s that we had maybe on one or two occasions a balanced budget? We continue to have these deficit budgets, and one wonders, how that is allowed to continue in perpetual kind of system. Is there any way you believe that we can get to a level where, of course, we'll have to always continue to borrow and what have you, because it's part of the portfolio. Any ways yes getting out of this deficit?
Yeah, we need to become more attractive to the rest of the world for investment. We need to generate new sources of income. We cannot keep taxing the citizen, because what you're doing, you're taking the same pool of money, right? What we're saying is that you ought to be finding new sources of income. How do we use our geography? How do we use our tourism asset? We're 2 degrees below the hurricane belt. We sit on the continental shelf. We have a rich marine resource. Why are we not getting more of our IT worldwide customers to come to Trinidad, build call centers, data centers? So the answer that I want to square off with you is that we have to find new sources of revenue to deal with that question.
Another caller on the line. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome to the program.
Spouse pay as the earner. That is why all of pay taxes.
Thank you, caller. Very excited caller there. She seems to have, as I said, that magic finger. MP, we are almost towards the end of the program, and I wanted you to, in the few closing moments just to give us again some closing remarks, and as we look at this property tax system, and of course we touched a bit on the economy, where do we go from here? We know where, of course this thing is in the parliament now, and there's this move towards moving us, at least moving the needle somewhere. Where are we in terms of what would you like to leave with the population in respect of this system of taxation?
Taxes is part of life. Taxes must be fair, it must be equitable. But the citizens must see that they get value for money. They must believe that when I pay this tax, I get value for money. I don't think these citizens agree by any means of stretch of anybody's imagination that they get value for money. We pay a road tax. We have the worst roads in the country. We're paying taxes for all sorts of things, and it's not resounding back to the benefit of the people. And, it comes back to a conversation we had in Parliament, where when the IMF report talks about growth, but are we developing as a society? Are all these positive numbers, this borrowing, we raised the borrowing ceiling by $10 billion for the state to have a bit of more bandwidth to borrow money going forward. But how is this money, helping the citizens in rural communities get better roads, fixing landslips? How is it helping the hundreds of graduates from UTT and UE who are sitting down at home today? They can't find jobs. So how is this growth that you're seeing, how is it impacting the development of the society? And I think government policy and the Minister of Finance and the Finance Ministry not only has to look at how do we drag the numbers to show growth, but how is this growth working for the development of a society? How are we looking at driving our economy forward, modernize it with digital infrastructure, but how are we looking at the most vulnerable in our society? How are we going to deal with the poorest of the poor? Because we can't leave them behind. And I think getting the right framework and mix for that in policy, I think there's a straightforward path for Trinidad and Tobago if you can get it right.
Right, so you're saying that true growth and development must be reflected in the same kinds of, if you're talking growth by way of IMF standards, that must be reflected and development must be reflected among the poorest.
The people, the society. You must see that development. Are we only giving menial jobs? Are we creating sustainable jobs? And, at a policy level, what are we telling our young people in this country? Are we creating an environment, space for you to get a decent job where you can buy a home and raise a family? Because that's the basic things our young citizens want. Yes. And if we, who are legislators and leaders in the country, can't articulate a clear vision for that, we'll continue to have this disconnect between the population and parliament and leaders and politicians, because they feel that there is a huge disconnect because we're not speaking to them at all. And that is what we have to address going forward.
Well, that's our program for this evening. This has been the Citizens Community Forum. We were talking property tax, looking at the property tax system in Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to thank MP Rushton Paray for taking the time out of his busy schedule to come in and sit with us to get give us a clearer understanding of what this property tax system is all about. And of course, MP, I think we have to continue the conversation.
Absolutely.
There's so much to talk about. We haven't touched on some of the other issues that are shaping the national conversation.
I'll be happy to come back.
crime and criminality, youth delinquency. Yes. There's so many issues. Yes. There's never a dull moment in Trinidad and Tobago. But all the same, we want to thank you for coming in and talking with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this evening. I'm Stephen Cummings, and this has been another program of the Citizens Community Forum, and this is Isaac 98.1 FM The Promise, inspiring families, inspiring youth. That's what we do, and of course we will be back on next Wednesday. See you then.